Welcome to First Sleep Aid, calm stories to help you unwind, learn, and fall asleep. From true crime to curious facts and thoughtful ideas, always softly spoken. Subscribe now and take a deep breath. You're in good hands.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're journeying back in time, back to a scene that has really baffled investigators and, captivated imaginations for over 75 years now. Imagine, if you will, the serene beauty of Somerton Beach near Adelaide, Australia. It's a quiet December evening in 1948. The sun's dipping below the horizon, painting the sky, those incredible oranges and purples, and the waves just gently withdrawing, leaving the sand undisturbed. It's this moment of profound stillness, right? A peaceful close to the day. But that tranquility was about to be shattered by an enigma. A solitary figure discovered propped against the seawall. He looked asleep, almost perfectly at peace, but there was something profoundly, unnervingly too still about him. And this isn't just a simple true crime story, it's a riddle. A riddle carved in sand and silence, an intricate puzzle that has, defied resolution for generations. And at the very heart of this enduring mystery lies a tiny scrap of paper, found hidden, bearing just 2 words in elegant Persian script. Tamam Shud. It is finished.
But as we're about to discover together, for this particular mystery, nothing, absolutely nothing, was truly finished.
Yeah, what this case reveals isn't just, the usual unraveling of a cold case. It's, I think, a profound truth about how deliberate absences can, ironically, create an enduring presence. The act of self-erasure by the Somerton man, it paradoxically etched his story into our collective memory far more deeply than maybe a clear identity ever could have. It speaks to a fundamental human desire for narrative closure, doesn't it? A need to understand even the most elusive of stories, and what happens when those dots simply refuse to form a clear picture. We're going to explore how a single cryptic detail can open a portal to a world of endless speculation, and why some stories, even when they finally get a name, remain profoundly, hauntingly unfinished.
So what's our mission today? We're going to embark on an extensive exploration of the layers of this incredible mystery. We'll start with the initial, unsettling discovery of the man on Somerton Beach. Then we'll meticulously piece together the tantalizing clues that emerged over time, clues that, honestly, often seem to contradict or deepen the enigma rather than resolve it. From there, we'll delve into the wild, captivating theories that spun out of the limited evidence, from international espionage to a tragic love affair. And finally, we'll fast forward to the cutting-edge modern scientific attempts that sought, after decades of silence, to finally give him a name. Get ready for a story that will make you question everything you think you know about identity, secrets, and the enduring power of the unknown.
The empty shore, the uncanny stillness of a deceased man.
Okay, let's unpack this opening scene in vivid detail. Imagine yourself on Somerton Beach. It's a popular stretch of coastline south of Adelaide, Australia. Morning of December 1st, 1948. The air is still cool, the sun's just beginning to warm the sand after a mild night. Early morning strollers, maybe heading for a swim or just enjoying the quiet start to the day, they start to emerge. And there, propped against the seawall, is a man.
Right. And he wasn't immediately recognized as deceased. That's important. Several witnesses noticed him, but their initial thoughts drifted to someone maybe just sleeping off a late night. Perhaps a drunk who had found a comfortable, if unusual, spot to rest.
Yeah, makes sense.
His posture was almost too composed, though, too deliberate. His head rested gently against the seawall like it was a pillow, arms neatly at his sides, and his legs were crossed precisely at the ankles.
Almost staged.
Exactly. There was even a half-smoked cigarette balanced awkwardly on his coat collar. Yeah, suggesting an interruption, like he'd just paused mid-gesture, maybe before completing a thought or an action. It was this tableau of uncanny stillness. But as the morning light got stronger, piercing through the shadows, the shocking, undeniable realization began to dawn on people. This man was unmistakably dead.
Oh, wow.
The stillness was too absolute, the composure too rigid. It just couldn't be anything else. Those initial casual glances gave way to unease, then alarm. An ordinary beach scene turned into the setting for this profound mystery.
And the initial findings, they painted a portrait that was, as you said, carefully prepared.
That's the word for it, yeah. Carefully prepared. He appeared to be maybe 40 to 45 years old, average height and build, calm, almost serene face. And crucially, no visible signs of struggle, no obvious wounds, no external violence, nothing like that.
Okay.
But his attire was meticulously cared for. That immediately struck investigators as highly unusual for someone found dead on a beach.
Right. Polished shoes, pressed trousers.
Exactly. Tie knotted perfectly. This attention to detail, this almost pristine presentation, it immediately raised red flags. It suggested someone who cared about his appearance, or maybe someone who had been placed there with a kind of eerie reverence.
And that meticulous preparation, it really sets this apart. It's not just a body on a beach. It's almost like a deliberate statement of anonymity.
Absolutely.
But then came the truly disturbing part, the absence of identity. No wallet, no hat, no ID whatsoever, not a single card, a letter, even a slip of paper. Nothing.
And crucially, every single label inside all his clothing, his suit jacket, his underwear, everything had been meticulously, almost surgically cut away.
Cut away, like with scissors or a knife?
Precisely. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, precise act of erasure, as if his very self, his connection to the world, was being systematically removed. The sheer effort involved in doing this, often requiring something quite sharp, was a chilling detail. It immediately told investigators this wasn't just some tragic, random event or misadventure.
Yeah, it screams intent.
Exactly. Someone, whether the man himself or another person, went to extreme lengths to remove any trace of his identity. It pushes the narrative beyond a simple death and into the realm of intentional concealment, suggesting a deliberate act of obfuscation.
That's a critical point. And it immediately makes you wonder, right, if he or someone deliberately stripped him of his identity, what else might be missing or intentionally hidden?
Precisely. And the contents of his pockets, when they finally examined them, were equally perplexing because they were so, well, mundane yet utterly devoid of personal context.
Mundane how?
Investigators found an unused bus ticket, an unstamped train ticket for a trip to Henley Beach, that's a nearby suburb. There was also a packet of chewing gum, a narrow aluminum comb, matches, and a packet of cigarettes. Army Club brand, I believe.
So just ordinary everyday items.
Exactly. But in this context, they seemed profoundly dissonant. The combination suggested a life in transit, maybe multiple lives even, but no single clear story. The contrast between his polished shoes, hinting at maybe an appointment or a planned journey, and the complete lack of identification. It just deepened the investigators' unease.
Why carry such everyday things, yet go to such lengths to erase who you are?
Right. It felt like fragments of a life carefully presented, while the core identity was ruthlessly suppressed.
So no name, no obvious cause of death yet, but this almost theatrical presentation is like the first act of a play where the lead character is already gone, and we're left to piece together their story from scattered props. This initial scene feels so carefully curated, it's almost like a deliberate message. But, in a case so devoid of immediate answers, what were investigators hoping to find as they widened their search beyond the beach? What were their next steps?
Well, the initial findings really compelled authorities to widen their search, obviously hoping to find any discarded belongings that might shed light on the man's identity. They searched the immediate area of Somerton Beach thoroughly, but found nothing. Absolutely nothing. However, later that same day, a promising lid emerged. A brown suitcase was discovered in the cloakroom of the Adelaide railway station. That's about, 11 kilometers from Somerton Beach?
Okay, so not right there, but close enough to be potentially linked.
Definitely. And it had been left there the day before the body was found on November 30th, checked in around 11 a.m.
The timing is crucial.
It is. This discovery offered a flicker of hope, but it quickly became just another layer of the enigma, really reflecting the man's own meticulously erased existence. Inside the suitcase, all the clothing also had its labels carefully removed, just like on the man's body.
Wow, the same thing again.
The exact same thing. The consistency of this detail was chilling. It was the same deliberate, almost obsessive removal of any identifying marks. There was, however, one exception. A single tag reading T. Keen stitched into a laundry bag.
P. Keen. Okay, a name. Finally.
Well, it seemed like it. But this fleeting clue proved to be probably a deliberate misdirection. Police meticulously checked missing persons records, every T. Keen they could find across Australia. But no missing person by that name could be connected to the man. The lead offered no help, just deepened the sense of intentional obfuscation.
So another dead end.
Yeah.
What else was in the suitcase? Anything less erased?
Well, yeah, amongst the carefully packed yet identity-stripped items were some odd things. A screwdriver, not exactly standard travel gear, right? Especially for someone seemingly on a short trip.
Oh, no.
There was also a table knife that had been crudely but effectively sharpened into a really keen-edged instrument, almost like a shiv or a specialized tool.
Okay, that's unsettling.
And perhaps most peculiar was a reel of unusual orange thread, described by textile experts back then as a unique waxed thread. barber brand, I think, of a type not commonly sold in Australia at the time.
Orange thread. Not sold in Australia.
Yeah, suggesting a foreign origin for some of his belongings, or maybe a specialized trade or hobby. Each item just added a new layer of strangeness. The modified knife, suggesting either a tool or a weapon. The exotic thread, hinting at foreign origin, special skill, maybe even a secret purpose. These weren't standard traveler's items. They suggested something far more deliberate and, frankly, unnerving. It created a deeper sense of mystery around the man's intentions and background.
It's chilling, isn't it? This isn't just a man who died without an identity. It's almost as if he was designed to be unidentifiable. Every clue, every carefully removed label, it just screams intentionality. It paints a portrait of deliberate erasure rather than just accidental anonymity. This wasn't the end of a story. It was a meticulously crafted beginning to a profound mystery, with every piece of evidence pointing away from recognition toward absence.
The whisper of a poem, Tamam Shud, and the threads of connection.
Months bled into, well, not years yet, but months passed. And the Somerton man remained a ghost. His death. An impenetrable puzzle that stumped even the most seasoned investigators. But then, in April of 1949, during a meticulous re-examination of his trousers, a discovery so tiny, so expertly concealed emerged that it would completely crack open the case and, redefine the entire mystery.
Yeah, it was the pathologist, Dr. John Burton Cleland, who, returning to the garments after months of no progress, made this astonishing find. He discovered a concealed pocket expertly sewn into the waistband of the dead man's trousers, a fob pocket, usually for a pocket watch. But in this case, it was clearly a secret compartment.
Hidden inside the waistband.
Exactly. And inside this hidden enclosure, a tiny scrap of paper was found, tightly rolled, almost missed, no bigger than a postage stamp. On it, printed in delicate Persian script, were just two words: Tamam Shud.
Tamam Shud, and that means
It is finished, or it is ended. The words, stark and profound, immediately elevated the case from just a simple death to something deeply symbolic, almost poetic.
wow, it is finished. Hidden like that.
This detail irrevocably shifts the entire paradigm of the investigation, doesn't it? The words Tamam Shud aren't just a random scrap. They carry immense symbolic weight, far beyond a simple note. Was this an intentional epitaph? A final message from the man himself? A statement about his life or his death? Maybe even a suicide note written in a language only he truly understood.
Or maybe left by someone else.
Or was it a clue, a deliberate breadcrumb? Or even a cryptic signature left by another hand, a message meant for someone else perhaps, or for the world to eventually decipher? It immediately imbued the entire case with this sense of premeditation, a deeper, more personal, and undeniably mysterious narrative. The fact that it was concealed so carefully suggests it was incredibly important.
And the fragment wasn't just any piece of paper, right? It was torn from a specific book.
Exactly. Torn with meticulous precision from the final page of a known book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
The Rubaiyat, I've heard of that. It was pretty popular back then.
Hugely popular. A collection of 19th century English translations by Edward Fitzgerald of Persian poetry. Widely famous, very influential in Western culture in the early 20th century. The original poem by Omar Khayyam, a Persian mathematician and astronomer from the 11th century, is known for its deep philosophical themes.
Like what?
Well, the verses meditate on fate, mortality, the fleeting nature of existence, living life to the fullest because it's short, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So to find this particular phrase, "it is finished," from that specific book, hidden so deliberately, added this profound, almost philosophical layer to the mystery. It transformed a simple body on a beach into something far more poetic and deliberate. It really felt like a carefully chosen farewell.
It's truly remarkable. So the police now have this tiny scrap. They know it's from the Rubaiyat. What next? They try to find the book it came from.
Exactly. Following this astonishing discovery and its connection to the Rubaiyat, the police launched a widespread public appeal. Find the matching book. They understood that the source text might hold further clues, maybe even the missing pieces of the puzzle.
Really?
Amazingly, yes. Days later, a local man came forward. He explained he had found a volume of the Rubaiyat tossed through the open window of his car. His car had been parked unlocked on Jetty Road in Glenelg, a suburb very close to Somerton Beach, months earlier. Right around the time the body was discovered, in fact.
Wow, what are the chances?
Incredible, isn't it? He hadn't thought much of it at the time, just tossed it onto the back seat. But now, seeing the police appeal, he realized its potential significance, and the connection was undeniable. almost too perfect. The torn scrap from the dead man's secret pocket fit precisely, absolutely perfectly, into the final corresponding page of this recovered book, like a key into a lock.
No doubt it was the right book then.
None whatsoever. The fibers matched, the jagged edge aligned perfectly. This was the book.
Okay, so they have the book. Did it hold more clues? You mentioned it right.
It absolutely did. What truly stands out to me is that the book itself was not empty of additional secrets. Inside the back cover, scrawled in faint, jagged pencil lines, investigators found more cryptic messages.
Like what?
There was a sequence of seemingly random letters arranged in 5 lines. It looked exactly like a code or maybe a cipher. Its meaning has defied all attempts at decryption over the decades.
A code? Seriously, what did it look like?
Well, the first line starts MRGOABM. Then there are other lines with seemingly jumbled letters, some crossed out. It's baffled cryptographers for years. And alongside this potential code, there was also a local telephone number, clearly legible.
A code and a phone number. Okay, this takes us from a quiet, enigmatic death to something far more intricate, hinting at a world of secrets, hidden communications.
Exactly. And an undeniable link to a living person. The presence of a cipher immediately suggested clandestine activities, adding another really complex dimension to the narrative.
So the phone number, who did it belong to? This feels like a massive lead.
It did seem like it, and you immediately ask, who would leave such a specific number so discreetly in this book connected to this phrase found in such strange circumstances? The telephone number belonged to a young nurse living in Glenelg. That's the suburb not far from Somerton Beach itself, and actually close to where the book was reportedly found. Her name was Jessica Harkness, though she later became known by her married name, Jessica Thompson. Everyone refers to her as Justin, though.
Justin
Yeah.
Thompson. Okay. Did the police talk to her?
They did, and when police located her and showed her a plaster cast of the dead man's face, that death mask they made early on to aid identification, her reaction was highly noticeable.
How so?
Witnesses, including the detectives present, described her response as shock, a visible jolt, even dread. It strongly suggested a recognition she immediately tried to suppress. Her visible distress was apparently undeniable.
Wow. So she knew him.
Well, despite that profound reaction, Jessica vehemently insisted she did not know the man. She claimed she had once owned a copy of that specific edition of the Rubaiyat, which was quite rare. She said she'd given her copy to an army lieutenant named Alfred Boxall during World War II, a man she said was fond of poetry.
Alfred Boxall. Was he the Somerton man?
That was a theory for a bit, but police quickly found Boxall alive and well, living in Sydney. And crucially, he still had his own copy of the Rubaiyat, the one Jessica gave him, completely intact, with her inscription to him still inside.
So it wasn't Boxall, and Jessica stuck to her story.
For the rest of her long life, yes. She never publicly admitted to any knowledge of the Somerton man. She took her secrets to the grave, sealing another profoundly human layer of the mystery. The intensity of her reaction, followed by her steadfast denial, just left investigators with more questions than answers about the nature of their connection, if one truly existed.
Her reaction, and then that lifelong silence. It just adds yet another layer of human drama and intrigue, doesn't it? Was he a suitor? A stranger she maybe briefly encountered? Or something far more shadowed? Something she was terrified to acknowledge? Maybe even involved in?
We just don't know.
The lack of explanation, her resolute refusal to elaborate, it's almost as compelling as the clues themselves. It leaves us wondering about their connection, if there was one, and the immense pressure she must have felt to keep that secret for so long.
And when you connect this to the bigger picture, the whole constellation of clues, the paper scrap, the book, the undeciphered code, the nurse, her visible shock followed by silence, each element just draws the mystery away from the ordinary and deep into the realm of intricate riddles. It suggests a confluence of lives where meanings dissolve just as they begin to appear. We're left with these potent, enduring questions. Why was a book of Persian verse marked with her number and containing a cryptic code found discarded near the scene and then linked to this man? Why were the words, "It is finished," carried so deliberately on his body? These aren't random occurrences. They speak of intent, of a narrative we simply cannot fully grasp. A carefully constructed silence around a secret.
Theories in the fog spy, lover or loner.
So, with all these intriguing yet ultimately inconclusive clues, a man without a name, a coded message, a mysterious book, and a nurse who denies knowing him, investigators were left grappling with the fundamental question: how did he die? And perhaps even more importantly, why? The elusive cause of death became this central, frustrating element of the case, didn't it? A gaping hole in any attempt at closure.
Absolutely. The autopsy, performed by the pathologist Sir John Burton Cleland, revealed some internal abnormalities, an enlarged spleen, significant blood congestion in his organs, some damage to the liver, and traces of blood in his stomach. But no obvious cause. Cleland faced this profound conundrum. If the man had ingested a common known poison, say strychnine or cyanide, which were sadly common methods back then, forensic tests of the time would almost certainly have revealed it.
The science was good enough for that, even in 48.
Generally, yes, for the common poisons. But instead, the evidence pointed to something far more insidious, something rare, maybe an obscure barbiturate, or a synthetic compound, or even a highly potent, fast-acting plant-based toxin like digitalis or ouabenine. Something not easily detectable with 1948 forensic science.
Okay, so untraceable, basically.
Effectively untraceable at the time. And this profound uncertainty, this medical blank slate, immediately created two main, deeply unsettling theories. It caused an immediate investigative split. Either it was murder, a perfect crime, where he was silenced with a poison designed specifically to leave no trace, expertly administered, or it was suicide. He chose his own end, carrying some secret despair, meticulously sealing it with the final, poignant words of Khayyam. The lack of any struggle on his body, the calm expression, could arguably support either scenario.
This lack of a definitive cause of death, it's just crucial to the enduring mystery, isn't it?
Absolutely. The body's silence, combined with the absence of hard evidence that could be identified by the forensic science of the era, left only conjecture, speculation, and lingering doubt. It forces us to consider the implications of what isn't found, perhaps more profoundly than what actually is. The very ambiguity of his demise became a key feature of the puzzle, allowing the case to remain open, a canvas for countless theories. The investigators of 1948 were truly up against a wall, facing a killer or a suicide method that was, quite literally, ahead of its time.
And the timing. The late 1940s, you have to remember the context, right? The shadows of the Cold War were just starting to stretch across the globe.
Exactly. It was a period of intense geopolitical tension. Espionage, counter-espionage, secret agents, these were very real, palpable fears and realities for people.
And Adelaide itself had this strategic importance. It lay relatively close to the Woomera rocket range,
Which was a top-secret site established just a year earlier in 1947 for British and Australian missile and weapons testing, a critical facility in the emerging post-war global power struggle.
So, in that climate, the idea that the Somerton man was a spy, it took hold pretty quickly, didn't it?
It really did. It gained significant traction, both in the public imagination and among some investigators. The evidence, though circumstantial, seemed to align almost perfectly with the narrative of espionage.
You mean the erased identity?
The meticulously erased identity, the cryptic, undeciphered code found in the book, that unusual foreign-sourced orange thread in his suitcase, maybe used for repairing specialized gear or uniforms, and the untraceable poison.
It all fits the spy story.
That all seemed to point towards a clandestine world. Was he a spy on a mission gone wrong, eliminated by a rival agency, maybe a defector silenced before he could talk? The pieces seemed to fit the dramatic, high-stakes narrative of the Cold War. It made for a compelling, albeit unproven, theory. The man becomes this silent casualty of a secret war.
Yeah, you can see why that theory was so popular. But there was another strong narrative, wasn't there? Something more personal.
Indeed. What truly stands out to me here is how that broader historical context profoundly informs the local mystery, allowing the imagination to fill in the blanks where evidence is lacking. But beyond the cloak and dagger stuff, others saw a more intimate, intensely personal story. One centered squarely on Jessica, the nurse.
Yes,
Destin.
with a woman with the phone number in the book.
The threads of connection were undeniable. Her phone number scribbled in the rubaiyat, a book linked directly to the deceased, her visible unease described as shock and dread when she saw his death mask, and the unspoken, tantalizing possibility of a deeply personal relationship.
So this interpretation suggested a more human, maybe more tragic motive for his death.
Exactly. Did he travel to Adelaide specifically to seek her out? Maybe from a past encounter during the war, as her own history suggested ties to military personnel? Was rejection or some other deeply personal complication arising from their relationship the unspoken motive behind his death? Be it a desperate act of suicide or a passionate yet clandestine murder. The story, through this lens, became intensely personal. A poignant tale of love, loss, and ultimate silence, resonating with the human experience of heartbreak and hidden lives. It shifts from global intrigue to a private tragedy.
So on one hand, international intrigue with agents and secret codes. On the other, a tale of profound personal tragedy, perhaps a love affair gone wrong. Two incredibly compelling but totally different narratives. But there was another possibility, wasn't there? A far simpler, perhaps even more melancholic explanation for this whole enigma.
Absolutely. And you can't help but wonder, what if the truth was far simpler and maybe even more melancholic? Some believed he was neither a spy nor a spurned lover, but simply a solitary individual, a man who had chosen to disconnect from his past.
A loner theory.
Exactly. This theory proposed that he was perhaps a traveler, maybe estranged from his family, carrying some private sorrow or a burden that compelled him to vanish. He might have chosen Adelaide as the final destination for a lonely act of withdrawal from life, a deliberate self-erasure where he meticulously planned to leave no trace.
So his careful preparation, the removed labels, the hidden pocket, the poetic farewell.
All could be interpreted as the final, quiet arrangements of a man who wished to simply disappear, to become truly anonymous in death. This theory paints a picture of profound isolation and personal despair, rather than grand conspiracy or dramatic romance. It suggests a quiet, internal tragedy rather than an external one. And it resonates, doesn't it, with the themes of the Rubaiyat itself, reflecting on the fleeting nature of life and the inevitability of one's end.
Each theory has its compelling points, drawing followers and igniting imaginations, especially as time went on with such limited, ambiguous evidence. But the ultimate frustration, of course, is that none of them could ever be definitively proven. The investigators back in '48 were left with a man, a body, and just a myriad of questions, but no concrete answers.
Precisely. The lack of concrete evidence for any single theory is what allowed the mystery to persist, to grow into legend. The untraceable poison left no proof, at least not that could be found back then. Espionage left no discernible, publicly verifiable evidence. Romance, if it existed, left no confession or corroborating testimony from Jessica or anyone else. The Somerton man remained a presence without a name, a life without a definitive trace. The theories just drifted like fog, rising and fading with each new discovery or speculative article, but never settling into certainty. In the profound absence of definitive answers, the mystery itself became the story. It formed a puzzle seemingly designed to resist resolution. It made him this figure caught between history and myth, silence and endless speculation. He became a canvas onto which the public could project their own interpretations, their anxieties about the unknown, and their deep-seated desires for narrative closure. His anonymity became his most powerful legacy.
A fragile name, the modern quest for identity.
For decades, the Somerton man remained literally the unknown man. His grave bore no name, just a marker asking questions, a silent testament to this enduring riddle that captivated Australia and really the world. But thanks to some extraordinary foresight back in 1948 and the relentless march of scientific progress, the story didn't end there.
That's right. In a truly unusual and remarkably prescient step for the time, the original authorities actually embalmed the body before burial.
Which wasn't standard procedure for an unknown person, was it?
Not at all. But perhaps sensing the potential for a prolonged and complex investigation, maybe one that might require further examination someday, they took this critical step. They also meticulously took that plaster cast of his head and upper body, the death mask, freezing his features in pale permanence, preserving what little was known of his physical identity.
And they buried him under concrete.
Yes, to further protect the remains and the secrets they held. And this extraordinary foresight, this deliberate act of preservation, meant that decades later, when science had advanced far beyond the wildest imaginations of 1948, strands of hair, miraculously preserved within that very death mask, still held fragments of his precious DNA, waiting for a future that might finally give him a name.
It was an act of profound, almost poetic patience by those early investigators, wasn't it? Laying the groundwork for a future solution.
It truly was. This move by the original investigators was remarkably prescient, almost prophetic. It underscores a subtle understanding that some mysteries transcend their immediate time frame, that technology might one day offer answers that contemporary methods simply couldn't provide. It provided that crucial bridge between old-world forensic limitations and new-world genetic possibilities, ensuring the puzzle remained potentially solvable, even if the solution took over 70 years to emerge. It's a real testament to their dedication that they took such measures, unknowingly setting the stage for a breakthrough decades later.
So fast forward to the 21st century. Forensic genealogy offered this revolutionary new path forward, a technique completely unimaginable in 1948. This wasn't just about matching DNA to a living relative, right? It was about tracing deep ancestral lines through these vast public and private genetic databases.
Exactly. And Professor Derek Abbott from the University of Adelaide, alongside the renowned American genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick, they dedicated themselves to unraveling the enigma using these cutting-edge methods.
It must have been a monumental undertaking.
Oh, absolutely. Painstaking. They worked with DNA extracted from those precious hair strands, which were often degraded after so long, and they painstakingly built an immense family tree, tracing tens of thousands of genetic connections, slowly mapping out a potential lineage for the unknown man. This required an incredible amount of scientific perseverance, computational power, and just sheer genealogical detective work following these faint genetic whispers across generations and continents.
And after years of dedicated work, a journey that began with a single hair, they finally announced something in 2022.
That's right. In July 2022, they announced their conclusion.
And the name. Who did they believe he was?
The name they put forward, after meticulously connecting all those genetic dots, was Carl Charles Webb.
Carl Charles Webb.
According to their research, the Somerton man was almost certainly Carl Charles Webb, born in Melbourne, Australia in 1905. His life, as they painstakingly pieced it together from fragmented records, suggested he was an electrical engineer by training, a man with a marriage that had ended in separation, and a life that seemed to have drifted into obscurity by the late 1940s.
An electrical engineer.
Yeah, and interestingly, he had a brother-in-law named Thomas Keene.
Thomas Keene. Like the laundry bag tag.
Exactly. T. Keene. It ties into that tag found in the suitcase, though it still doesn't definitively explain its presence there or why it was the only tag left. But this research offered a concrete identity, a person who had lived a seemingly ordinary life before becoming the subject of this extraordinary mystery, finally putting a name to the face on the death mask.
Carl Webb. After all these years, a name. It's a huge step, an incredible achievement for science and dedication. It must offer a profound sense of closure for those who followed the case for so long. But I have to ask, does giving him a name truly solve the Somerton Man mystery? Or does it just add another layer to the enigma?
That's precisely the critical question, isn't it? When we connect this to the bigger picture, the revelation of Carl Webb's name was striking, but undeniably incomplete. While the genealogical evidence pointed strongly to Carl Webb, with Professor Abbott stating a near certainty, South Australian police didn't immediately confirm it, and official recognition has, well, lagged behind the scientific and genealogical evidence.
Why is that?
It just highlights the extraordinarily high bar for definitive proof in such a storied and public case, especially one with such enduring mystery. They need absolute certainty. And furthermore, even with a name, the life of Carl Webb remains largely fragmentary. There are no confirmed photographs that definitively match the Somerton man's distinctive features, particularly his unusual ear shape and calf muscles. There are only scattered records, electoral rolls, brief archival notes.
So even if the identification is correct, much of his story is still untold.
Agonizingly untold. The lingering questions are profound, and perhaps even more poignant now with a name attached. If he was Carl Webb, the seemingly ordinary electrical engineer who separated from his wife,
then why Adelaide?
Yeah.
Over 700 kilometers from Melbourne.
Exactly. Why was he there? Why the Persian poetry? That seems like a cultured choice for a man whose known life was more technical. Why the meticulous erasure of his identity, the cut labels, the hidden pocket, the discarded suitcase?
And crucially, the big question, what was the true meaning of his death?
Was it chosen? A meticulously planned suicide using an untraceable poison? Was it inflicted a murder by some clandestine hand? Or was it just a tragic, inexplicable accident that remains unexplained? The DNA unlocked a door, definitely. But beyond it, we still find more silence, more profound questions about the why rather than a definitive answer.
So the DNA unlocked a door. Yeah, but beyond it, we still find more silence than illumination. A fragile history indeed. The meaning of his death, much like the words folded in his pocket, truly remains unfinished. It compels us to keep seeking answers, doesn't it? Outro. And so, we've journeyed from a serene beach back in 1948, witnessing the perplexing discovery of a man without a name, through decades of tantalizing clues and compelling theories, all the way to the cutting edge of 21st century forensics, which offered us a possible identity, Carl Webb. Yet even with this incredible breakthrough, even with a potential name, the sense of profound enigma persists, doesn't it? We still don't definitively know why Carl Webb, this electrical engineer from Melbourne, came to Adelaide, or what his final purpose was. We don't know why his clothing bore no labels, or why the profound words of a Persian poet, Tamam Shud, "It is finished," were so carefully hidden in his pocket. and we still don't definitively know whether his death was chosen, inflicted by another, or simply a tragic, inexplicable accident of circumstance. The journey for answers, while making remarkable progress, still leaves us at the precipice of the unknown, gazing into the depths of a mystery that continues to resist ultimate resolution.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that the Somerton Man, even with a potential name like Carl Webb, is less a solved case and more a profound mirror of human incompleteness. Lives vanish, meanings are irrevocably lost to time, and what often remains is a silence we tirelessly try to fill with theories, stories, and questions. His grave, once bearing only that honking inscription, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach," now perhaps has a name, a historical reference point. But the overarching mystery continues to draw us in. It speaks to a fundamental human desire for closure, for understanding, for a complete narrative that this particular case so powerfully and consistently denies us. The deeper we dig, the more layers of purposeful ambiguity seem to emerge.
The two words found in his pocket, Tamam Shud, it's finished, were intended, perhaps, to be the final poignant closure to his story. A last statement from a man determined to end his own narrative. And yet they absolutely do not silence his story. Not at all. For more than 70 years, countless people, detectives, researchers, armchair sleuths, just curious minds have searched for answers, captivated by the silent figure on the beach, and the riddle continues to resonate, continuing to captivate us, defying true resolution. It reminds us that some books, even when their final page is torn out, remain stubbornly, eternally open.
And this raises, I think, an important question for you, our listener, to ponder long after this deep dive concludes. What does the haunting persistence of the Somerton Man mystery, this enduring fascination with an unknown figure, truly tell us about our own human need? Our need for answers, for connection, and for meaning in the face of the truly unknown. It seems the man who meticulously erased his identity has, in fact, become unforgettable. In his absence, he is profoundly present. In his silence, he speaks volumes. And perhaps that is the most enduring paradox of all, that by seeking to erase himself from the world, Carl Webb, the Somerton Man, etched his story into the very fabric of unsolved history, ensuring his eternal presence in our collective imagination.